Hi, today I'm going to explain a horror mystery movie called A Stray. Spoilers are ahead, watch out and take care. The movie opens in Russia, with a doctor named Igor arriving at a morgue to identify the body of his missing son. As he enters, he has a flashback of his fond memories with the boy and becomes emotional. He then examines the body and immediately declares that it's not his son. A detective asks him to look closely, but Igor explains that his son had a deformed foot that he would recognize. The scene then cuts to 3 years later, where we see Igor and his wife, Plenor, still mourning the loss of their son, who was never found. They decide to adopt a child and travel to an orphanage run by nuns in the countryside. A nun named Sister Isadora greets them and directs them to a room filled with infants. These babies are adorable, but Plena doesn't feel a connection with any of them. She misses her son and immediately heads outside to calm herself down. Moments later, Polina hears some noises from a nearby building and gets curious. She heads there and comes across a dilapidated room where the orphanage guard is lying on the floor. His face has been severely injured, with a large hole in one eye. And a child is huddled in the corner. Polina freaks out and approaches the man to save him, but unfortunately, he passes away, and the little boy also flees the scene. Shortly after, the cops arrive, and a detective named Antropov claims that the orphanage guard shot himself in the eye. He then inquires about the child present, to which Sister Isadora asserts that it couldn't have been one of the orphanage children as the are constantly monitored. Just then, Polina notices some kids bullying a little boy in the distance. She approaches to check and notices that it is the same boy she saw earlier. He is incredibly pale, and he growls and crawls at her on 4 feet like an animal. Polina rushes in to save the boy from the bullies, and he also hugs her tightly. When the cops ask about him, Sister Isadora responds that she has never seen this boy before. Since the child seems to have abnormal behavior and aggression, the cops decide to transport him to another facility. Polina offers to take care of him while they look for his family, but the officers refuse. She explains that she is a teacher with experience dealing with difficult children, but the cops insist it is more complicated than that. Afterward, the kid gets into a police car and leaves, while Polina and Igor also drive away. However, after driving for a shorter distance, the couple is shocked to discover that the boy has escaped the police vehicle and followed them. Polina wants to take him home, and even though Igor is hesitant, he doesn't want to upset his wife and eventually agrees. In the following scene, the couple arrives at their country house, and Plena eagerly starts preparing a room for the boy. This worries Igor, and he advises her not to become too attached because they must return him to the authorities. But Plena doesn't seem to care and begins to coddle the boy. She decides to address him by her former son's name, Vanya. An annoyed Igor asks her to pick a different name for the boy, but she ignores him. The next day, Antropov arrives at the house and reveals that the child has run away. However, Igor pretends to be unaware of the situation and acts surprised. After a brief chat, the officer prepares to leave. But before that, he informs Igor that he isn't a good liar. He knows that the couple has kept the child, but he assures Igor that he's on their side and will help them with custody. Hearing this, Igor is shocked but states that he doesn't need any help. One day, Polina loses sight of the boy and begins frantically searching for him in the house. When she steps outside, she notices Vanya being approached by a woman dressed in all black. Polina believes she's attempting to kidnap him and screams, prompting the woman to flee. In the afternoon, Igor meets with Antropova and describes the incident. He believes the woman is the boy's biological mother, and she has come to claim her son. Igor then requests her permission to take the child to their apartment in Moscow, where they actually live. Surprisingly, the officer agrees without hesitation and just asks that they stay in touch. The scene then cuts to Moscow, where we see a married couple, the Makarovs, parking their car when Vanya unexpectedly appears in front of them. They almost run over the boy, but Plena arrives at the last second and saves him. She then introduces the kid to the Makarovs, and though it turns out they're neighbors. However, for some reason, the couple looks at the boy in horror, as if they've seen a ghost. In the following days, Vanya gradually adjusts to his new life and becomes less aggressive. He also starts addressing the couple as mum and dad, which makes them very happy. One day, Igor takes the boy to the park and encourages him to play with the other kids. He then sits down on a nearby bench and begins chatting with his neighbor. Meanwhile, Vanya is holding the other child as a ball, and when they ask him to pass it, he simply sits still. This prompts the others to make fun of him and call him a zombie. Enraged, Vanya charges at one of the bullies and attacks him until his father intervenes. Later, we see some cops at Igor's house, who inform him that the attacked child needed 15 stitches. They determine that Vanya is not mentally stable and decide to keep him in a facility. However, Igor bribes them with some money and sends them out of the house. Days later, Polina cuts Vanya's hair and Isa, shocked to see how much he looks like her first son. In the evening, she bakes a cake for his new birthday, which is actually the birthday of the original Vanya. Everyone seems excited and cheerful, but when Polina brings out the cake with candles, the boy freaks out. He becomes so agitated as he recalls disturbing memories of a fire from his past. Vanya ends up knocking the cake over and becomes increasingly aggressive. Seeing this, Polina hugs him tightly and soothes him until he finally relaxes. The next day, Igor goes to the orphanage to speak with Sister Isadora and inquires about the boy's background. However, she doesn't reveal anything and simply tells him they should baptize him. A disappointed Igor prepares to leave, then notices the building where the orphanage guard died and decides to investigate. There, he discovers a newspaper clipping from 1997, stating that the same guard saved a child from a burning fire back then. The child's father apparently set fire to the house while drunk and died in the incident. The guard rescued the boy and brought him to the orphanage, but one day, he mysteriously disappeared and was never seen again. Later, when Igor returns home, Polina excitedly informs him that she's pregnant, which makes him very happy. Although doctors had previously said that she could not conceive, the couple is overjoyed with this blessing. Meanwhile, Vanya watches them from a corner and feels very agitated. Days later, Polina goes for an ultrasound, where the doctor reveals that her baby is perfectly healthy. She then displays the baby on the screen, which makes Polina very excited. She asks Vanya to come closer and look at his sibling, but the boy begins angrily grinding his teeth. Suddenly, the equipment stops working and the screen goes black. Vanya then storms out of the room, but the doctor assures Polina that it's normal for the first child to be jealous. Later at home, Polina finds the ultrasound pictures ripped into pieces. This enrages her and she confronts Vanya about it, but he only becomes aggressive. Polina begins to scream at him, and he also bites her hand in retaliation. At this moment, Igor arrives home, and the boy rushes to hug him while acting terrified. Igor then scolds his wife for yelling at the child, and although she tries to explain herself, he refuses to listen. Later, Igor speaks privately with the boy and informs him that they had a son before him. One day, he let the child go for a walk alone and gave him his watch, telling him when to return. Igor reveals that during his childhood, his father gave him that watch and asked him to come back in the same way. However, his son has never returned from that walk to this day. Igor then informs Vanya that, despite not being their biological son, they love him a lot and he shouldn't feel any less about himself. The scene then cuts to a few days later, when Igor comes home from work and finds Vanya missing. He asks Polina about it. She reveals that Antropov came and took the boy since the found his real family. Igor doesn't believe these and becomes very angry, saying that they can't just give up their son. He then immediately calls the officer and heads outside to find the boy. Elsewhere, we see Antropov driving toward the orphanage with Vanya in the backseat. The man starts singing to cheer up the boy, but he soon notices a woman singing along with him. When Antropov looks back, he is shocked to see his late mother's face on the boy. This causes him to freak out and accidentally drive the car off the cliff. Shortly after, several cops show up at the accident scene and discover Antropov dead. Igor also arrives and desperately searches for Vanya, but the cops reveal that there is no child. Worried, Igor then returns to his vehicle, where he finds Vanya, smiling and unharmed. After a while, he returns home and leaves Vanya there before heading outside. Polina begs him not to leave her alone with the boy, but he assures her that she'll be fine. Igor then heads to the orphanage, where he bribes some of the children to tell him what happened to the guard. In response, they lead him to an abandoned building and pull a phone from a box. They then show him footage of a crazy woman growling and crawling like an animal while the guard is trying to apprehend her. They reveal that this woman is actually the guard's wife, Lena. Just then, Sister Isadora appears and chases the children away. Igor demands to know the truth, so the woman leads him to Lena's grave, where she reveals that she has been dead for many years. She then takes out a clipping from 20 years ago that depicts the guard rescuing a child from a fire. Igor sees the picture and is shocked to realize that the child is the same kid he adopted. Sister Isadora reveals that this child is not a normal one but the devil's son, who has no gender, age, or soul. It turns out he can also shapeshift and take the form of other Sir loved ones to manipulate them. She further explains that the deranged woman in the video is not actually Lena, but the devil, who had a shapeshifted to look like her. At this point, we learn that the mysterious woman who tried to abduct the boy was none other than Sister Isadora. Elsewhere, Polina is having dinner with Vanya when she discovers a needle in her food. She becomes terrified and rushes to the bathroom to prevent the boy from attacking her. However, Vanya acts all innocent, asking her to open the door and calling her mother. When she doesn't respond, he appears out of the bathroom drawer in the form of a grotesque figure. Later, when Igor returns home, he notices Polina lying on the floor, covered in blood, while the boy is casually playing in the distance. This sends him into a state of panic and he immediately rushes her to the hospital with the boy. Meanwhile, Vanya has a flashback to when he died many years ago, and his mother performed a ritual to resurrect him. A while later, the doctors manage to save Plinor, but unfortunately, she loses the baby. When she regains consciousness, she begs Igor to get rid of the boy as soon as possible. Vanya, who has been listening all along, rushes her out of the hospital. He soon arrives at the Makroff's home and murders the husband without hesitation. After that, he confronts the wife and demands she hand over the watcher that once belonged to the original Vanya. In the next scene, Igor arrives home and finds Vanya, who shows him the watch. The man is confused about how he got it, so the boy reveals that it was Igor who gave it to him. Vanya says that he is their first son who went missing years ago. Hearing this, Igor is left bewildered and doesn't know what to believe. Soon after, he is visited by a cop, who informs him of the death of the Makroff's couple. The officer also shows him a video they discovered in the couple's apartment. It is a CCTV footage, which proves that Igor's son was accidentally hit by the Makroffs many years ago. They took his watch and concealed his body elsewhere. This astounds Igor, and he questions the officer if he's blaming them for the Makroffs' deaths. However, the cop responds that it was their pit bull who went crazy and attacked the couple. After the cop leaves, Igor crushes some sedative pills and mixes them into some juice. He then gives it to the boy, who asks if he loves him. Igor responds that he does, after which the kid happily drinks the juice and soon passes out. Next, Igor takes him to the orphanage, where he and Sister Isadora restrain him to a bed. When the boy starts to wake up, he begins to growl, toss, and change into different forms. The two then lock him in the room and proceed to leave. But moments later, Igor is startled when he hears Polina's voice from inside. The scene then cuts to a few days later, when Igor is visited by a friend. However, he behaves very strangely and refuses to let him in, saying it's not a good time. It turns out that Polina has passed away, and Igor is going through a very difficult time. His friend apologizes for not coming to Polina's funeral, explaining that he didn't want to see her in a coffin. But Igor seems in a hurry to send him off and quickly closes the door. This confuses the man, and as he prepares to leave, he peeks through the window to see what's going on. To his shock, he sees Igor interacting with Polina Insidia, who's supposed to be dead. It turns out that our protagonist has brought the monster home once again, since he can't bear to live without his beloved wife.
Streets are cold and dreams are gold, running wild, let the legends unfold. Neon signs like the night skies, hustle hard, that's the prize. City lights and midnight fights, grinding till the morning lights, chasing shadows down the lane, living fast, we own the game. Echoes bounce off concrete walls, silent whispers in crowded halls. Beneath the masks we hide our fears, every wound that never clears. City lights and midnight fights, grinding till the morning lights, chasing shadows down the lane, living fast, we own the game. Fortunes told in alley codes, roads that lead where no one goes, risking all to stake our claim, destiny in burning flames. City lights and midnight fights, grinding till the morning lights, chasing shadows down the lane, living fast, we own the game, own the game. haunts of concrete walls, silent whispers in crowded halls. Beneath the masks we hide our fears, every wound that never clears. City lights and midnight fights, right into the morning light. Chasing shadows down the lane, living fast, we own the game.